Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness. You didn't click this video by accident. You were meant to be here. There's a message waiting for you, one that's been rippling through the cosmos, aligning stars and synchronicities, just so it could land at your feet today. So let me ask you. Have you been feeling like something's shifting inside you? Something big, maybe even undefinable? Because if you have, you're not alone. And you're not imagining it. This is not just another horoscope. This is a soul transmission. A mirror held up to your inner world, a guide through the storm of transformation that April brings. And trust me, Scorpio, transformation is your sacred gift. April is not here to make you comfortable. It's here to make you honest. To reveal what no longer serves you. To peel back the layers you've outgrown. Because you, Scorpio, are not here to play small. You're here to evolve, to rise, to walk through fire and emerge gold. Something in your life may feel like it's falling apart right now. A relationship, a career path, a part of your identity. But from a higher perspective, this isn't falling apart. This is falling into alignment. The eclipse portal this month is powerful, and for you, it activates the deepest houses of rebirth and release. It's no coincidence you've been feeling the urge to detach, to reimagine, to reawaken. These aren't passing moods, they're spiritual instructions. And so I invite you, not just to watch, but to receive. To be present, not just with me, but with your own intuition. Let the symbols we explore today, the cards, the stars, the energy, become a language your soul remembers. Now, before we dive into the mysteries ahead, I want to take a moment to honor your presence here. Your time, your attention, your energy, it means everything. Every like, every comment, every subscription, it's not just a number. It's a signal. A frequency. A bridge between your heart and the heart of this growing community we call Eternal Mindfulness. So thank you, from the depths of my being, for showing up. You are the reason this message flows. Your energy is part of its magic. And trust me, dear Scorpio, you'll want to stay until the very last moment of today's reading. Because what the universe is preparing to reveal to you is nothing short of extraordinary. Now, let me ask you, what part of your spirit guided you here today? What in your life is calling for a deeper truth? I invite you to share in the comments below. Let's make this a sacred space of reflection and resonance. Are you ready? Let's dive into the wisdom that's been waiting for you. It's strange how change never truly announces itself. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or loud declarations. Often, it begins with a whisper, a feeling deep within, a quiet discomfort, or an inexplicable longing that you can no longer ignore. As we continue this journey together, Scorpio, that whisper you've been hearing is beginning to grow louder. You're not imagining it. This month's eclipse is a gateway. And not just any gateway, but one that asks for your full presence, your courage, and your willingness to see clearly what has long been buried beneath the surface. This April eclipse moves through spaces in your chart that most people avoid exploring, the hidden realms of the 12th house and the humbling mirror of the 6th. These are not places of public triumph. They are places of surrender, of self-confrontation, and quiet revolutions. The 12th house invites you to witness your own illusions, the stories you've carried about your worth, your safety, your past. The sixth house, meanwhile, calls you into service, not to others, necessarily, but to the discipline of care, to tending your own soil so that what grows from it is real and sustainable. This is not punishment. It's purification. Saturn, the teacher of time, sits heavily in this terrain now, not as an enemy, but as a sculptor. If it feels like pressure, it's because something beautiful is taking shape within you. Structure is being asked of your spirit. Commitment is being asked of your heart. And if old patterns are breaking down, it's because they were never meant to last. Scorpio is the sign of transformation, but this isn't always a grand phoenix moment. Sometimes, it's subtle and silent, like a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Numbers, too, are speaking this week. If you've been seeing 9s, 11s, or 13s, pay attention, not to predict events, but to understand rhythms. The number 9 whispers of completion, of lessons that are nearing their end. 11 cracks the veil between thought and intuition. It's the spark of inner knowing rising through uncertainty. And 13, long misunderstood, is not a number of misfortune but of sacred unraveling. It asks, what are you still holding on to that no longer belongs to who you're becoming? Sometimes, the shedding must come before the soaring. It's natural to feel fear when stepping into the unknown. The mind clings to the familiar, even when it hurts. But there is a kind of wisdom that only emerges in darkness, not the kind that blinds you, but the kind that silences distraction and lets you finally hear your own truth. Imagine sitting by a still lake at night, the reflection of the moon slowly forming on the water's surface. You don't chase it. You become still enough for it to appear. That's the invitation now. And maybe the discomfort you feel isn't a sign that something's wrong, but a sign that you've outgrown something once necessary. You are no longer who you were, and pretending to be will only delay the gifts that are coming. Let your heart break open, not because it is weak, but because it has been confined for too long. If you feel overwhelmed, don't rush to fix it. Instead, create space for stillness. Breathe. Rest. Listen. There is clarity waiting behind the noise. A simple practice, closing your eyes, letting go of the day, and listening to the hum of your own breath, can be a doorway to a deeper knowing. Not everything has to be understood to be honored. Not everything has to be named to be true. You are being shaped, not shattered. Held, not punished. And while you may not see the full picture yet, something sacred is unfolding just beneath the surface. All you need to do now is be present for it. What's falling apart is often what was never truly aligned to begin with. And when the pieces start to scatter, it's not a signal to panic, it's an invitation to observe. To pause. To ask yourself, what was I building on? And is it still worth continuing? For Scorpio, a sign born under the element of water yet ruled by the force of transformation, this kind of breakdown is not a curse. It's a calling. And this month, the cards reflect that truth in bold, uncompromising symbols: death, the tower, the star. These archetypes are not subtle. They are raw, unfiltered, and honest, much like you at your most awake. The death card, often misunderstood, is never about endings in the way we fear them. It's a quiet evolution. A necessary turning of the soil so something richer can grow. It doesn't ask for violence or dramatic goodbyes. It asks for presence, for reverence, for your willingness to shed the version of yourself that has served its purpose, no matter how familiar it's become. The tower, in contrast, comes when we resist. It arrives when we try to patch over cracks that need to be acknowledged. It strips away the illusions we've protected, the stories we've told ourselves to feel safe. That can feel like chaos, but underneath, it's clarity. There is a quiet grace in surrendering to what's real, especially when what's real is uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, something truly sacred begins to awaken, your inner knowing, your deeper voice, the part of you that no longer needs external permission to grow. Then comes the star. Always after the storm. Always after the collapse. It doesn't shine from the sky out of nowhere, it rises when you've made space for it. That space, oddly enough, is carved by loss, by letting go, by emptiness. But it's in emptiness that light moves freely. Much like a still pond that finally reflects the moon, the star reminds us that healing isn't a reward for surviving pain. It's a natural unfolding once we've stopped holding so tightly. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to carry water in a closed fist. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. But open your hand, and it stays. Life, like water, responds to openness. These cards don't ask you to change overnight, they ask you to loosen your hold. Not because what you care about doesn't matter, but because clinging doesn't preserve what's meant to stay. It only blocks what's meant to arrive. In times like this, the practice is not to strive harder, but to pause more gently. You are not broken. You are being remade, realigned, reconnected to something more stable than what was once built on fear. And just like the natural world never mourns the shedding of leaves, there's no shame in letting parts of yourself fall away. The beauty of life lies not in permanence, but in renewal. You may notice that these shifts are not just external. You might start questioning things you once accepted, or feeling drawn to silence rather than answers. Let that be okay. Growth rarely makes noise. The most profound changes happen not with fire and thunder, but with space, with stillness. With your willingness to say, I don't know what's next, but I'm here for it. So if something in your life is crumbling, falling, or fading, congratulations. You're being given the chance to build again, this time on ground that won't shake when the wind returns. And when you rise, because you will, it won't be as who you were. It will be as who you've become, unshaken, unchained, and unmistakably true. Sometimes healing doesn't begin with knowing what to fix, it begins with noticing what you've been carrying. The tension in your shoulders, the heaviness in your breath, the way you brace yourself before speaking, these aren't just habits. They are messages from within. Messages that say, this pain has stayed too long. And for someone like you, Scorpio, so deeply intuitive, so naturally attuned to what lies beneath, this month becomes a mirror, reflecting all the hidden stories you've told yourself just to survive. Now, survival is no longer the goal. Now, it's about release. Renewal. Realignment. You've already walked through the fire. You've already watched pieces of your life fall away. And from that place of ash and echo, something inside you has begun whispering a new question, Not, why did this happen to me? But, what am I ready to learn from this? That single shift in perspective is more powerful than any outer event. It is the spark that begins to transform suffering into wisdom. It allows what once felt like punishment to become a path of practice, a space where you can meet yourself with both honesty and compassion. The law of attraction isn't a magic trick. It's not about thinking pretty thoughts and pretending everything's fine. It's about alignment, about choosing thoughts, actions, and beliefs that reflect the truth of who you want to become, not the fear of who you were taught to be. The mind is a garden, and it will grow whatever you plant. So this month, what would happen if you planted gratitude instead of guilt? Presence instead of projection? What if every morning, before the world presses in, you wrote down just 3 things you're thankful for, not because they're perfect, but because they're real? That simple act begins to rewire your awareness. It shifts your attention from lack to abundance, from shame to sovereignty. There is an old teaching: the more tightly you hold on to something, the more it slips away. This isn't just about relationships or dreams, it's about identity. About how we cling to versions of ourselves that feel familiar, even when they no longer serve us. Scorpio, you are the sign of shedding, of becoming. So now, the question becomes, what part of you is asking to be let go, not out of rejection, but out of reverence? One beautiful and symbolic way to honor that process is through ritual. Not in a mystical or grandiose way, but in a deeply personal, grounded one. Sit in a quiet space. Write a letter to the version of yourself you're ready to release. Maybe it's the one who never felt good enough. Maybe it's the part of you that always had to be strong. Write to them as if you're saying goodbye to an old friend. Thank them for how they protected you, for what they taught you. And then, if it feels right, burn the letter. Watch it dissolve into smoke, into space, into possibility. Let the ashes become soil for something new. This is not about erasing your past. It's about choosing to no longer be defined by it. It's about remembering that peace doesn't come from control, it comes from clarity. And clarity arrives not through force, but through softness. You don't have to push your way forward. You only have to stop resisting where you are. So as the sky continues to shift and your chart lights up with invitations for deeper healing, stay close to the quiet. Stay curious about what your discomfort is pointing toward. And most importantly, stay gentle with yourself. This is not the end of the story. This is the chapter where you finally start writing in your own voice. Not all love stories are meant to last forever. Some arrive like sudden storms, wild, beautiful, uncontainable, meant to shake loose the parts of us that have forgotten how to feel. Others come like mirrors, quietly reflecting our deepest fears, our longing to be seen, and our patterns that still need softening. And sometimes, the hardest part of love isn't losing someone else. It's losing the version of ourselves we thought we needed to be in order to be loved. After all the healing, all the inner work, all the searching you've done lately, perhaps now is the moment to simply sit with one question. Is this love allowing me to expand, or is it asking me to shrink? That question doesn't come from ego or judgment. It comes from awareness. It comes from knowing that the highest form of love isn't attachment, it's clarity. It's the kind of love that holds space without gripping, that says, I choose you, without needing to possess. In this phase of your journey, the cards reflect the exact energy you're moving through. The appearance of the Lovers is rarely just about romance. It's about alignment. It's about choosing the path that mirrors your truth, not your fears. And the Empress, in her full embodiment, reminds you of your own capacity to nurture, to create, to attract love that feels natural, not negotiated. These archetypes are not promises, they're reminders. You already carry within you the frequency of the love you're seeking. But here's where it gets subtle. When we're in between heartache and hope, between silence and connection, it's easy to fall into old habits. To reach for what's familiar, even if it's unfulfilling. To convince ourselves that a partial connection is better than none at all. But that's only because we forget that wholeness was never about who stands beside us. It was always about how fully we stand with ourselves. There's a quiet teaching in the way a river flows. It doesn't beg the rocks to move. It doesn't force its way through. It simply finds its own rhythm and lets go of what doesn't move with it. That's what this part of your love journey is about. Not chasing. Not proving. But softening into your own current and trusting that those who are meant to meet you there, will. Letting go of a relationship, or even the hope of one, is not an act of giving up. It's an act of trusting that your heart deserves more than confusion. That your time deserves more than waiting. That your energy deserves more than guessing games. And this isn't about blame. It's about boundaries. About knowing that choosing yourself is never selfish, it's sacred. If you feel ready, you can even turn this into a gentle practice. Sit quietly and reflect. What version of love am I still clinging to? Is it one that honors me, or one that only exists because I'm afraid of being alone? And if it's the latter, what would it look like to trust that being alone is just a pause between harmonies, not the end of music itself? When the heart learns how to be free, it no longer searches for love to complete it. It attracts love that complements it. Love that sees you not as someone to fix, but as someone to witness. Someone to walk beside, not lean upon. And when you arrive in that space, when your inner world feels safe and full, you will begin to notice something miraculous. Love will begin to arrive not just in romance, but in moments. In conversations. In your breath. In your quiet courage to choose yourself, again and again, without apology. There's a certain weight that money carries, not just in our wallets, but in our bodies, in the quiet tension behind our eyes, and the way we breathe when bills stack up or dreams feel delayed. For Scorpio, whose inner world is often deeper and more complex than they show, financial energy isn't just about numbers, it's about self-worth, stability, and the fear of scarcity that sometimes hides behind ambition. This month, instead of reacting to money with fear or urgency, you're being invited to relate to it differently, not as a burden, but as a current. Something to flow with, not force against. The cards show this clearly. The Ace of Pentacles signals new potential, a seed ready to take root, but only in soil that's been cleared of weeds. That means if your mindset around money has been tangled with shame, guilt, or doubt, this is your moment to start over. To build not just a career or income stream, but a foundation that feels honest, sustainable, and aligned with your deeper values. The Eight of Pentacles reminds us that mastery isn't born overnight. It's built with intention, one small step, one focused task, one conscious choice at a time. There's something profoundly liberating that happens when you stop seeing money as an external force that controls you and begin treating it like a language, something that responds to how you think, how you act, how you believe. This is the core of energetic alignment. Just as water shapes itself around obstacles without losing its flow, your relationship with finances can shift when you soften your grip. Instead of asking, "Will I have enough?" try asking, "Where am I still resisting my own abundance?" You'll often find that the answer doesn't lie in how much you earn, but in how much you believe you're allowed to receive. The idea of stepping outside your comfort zone can sound overwhelming, especially when your energy is already stretched. But discomfort is not always a sign to pull back. Sometimes, it's a signal that you're outgrowing what no longer fits. Whether it's a job that feels stale, a business idea that's been sitting dormant, or a skill you've long wanted to develop, now is the time to return to those nudges. Not all change requires disruption. Sometimes, the smallest consistent shift is enough to open doors you couldn't see before. It can help to approach this season with a calm, grounded plan. Not because planning controls the outcome, but because it focuses your energy. Even writing out your priorities, what you value, what you're working toward, what you're willing to release, can clear energetic space. And don't forget to nourish your inner resources, too. Simple practices like meditative breathing, or tapping, EFT, to release anxiety, can transform your nervous system's response to financial pressure. These are not just spiritual tools, they're practical medicine for the body and mind. Color, too, carries energy. Wearing deep black and wine red this month isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's a way to anchor into grounded confidence and quiet power. These tones reflect stability and self-assurance, two qualities Scorpio thrives on when money matters become emotional. Let your wardrobe, your journal, even your bank card be small acts of intention, reminders that you are stepping into a new relationship with your financial world, one that honors both discipline and flow. The truth is, your purpose was never meant to exist apart from your prosperity. The two are intertwined. When you walk toward what lights you up inside, when you create, share, build, or teach from a place of inner alignment, resources begin to meet you there. Not instantly, not always in the form you expect, but steadily. Faithfully. Trust in that rhythm. Be willing to begin again, without shame. You are not behind. You are right on time. And here we are, Scorpio. If you've made it this far, take a breath, not just because you've listened, but because you've allowed yourself to feel. To reflect. To remember that even in your most difficult moments, you were never powerless. What you've just walked through, these messages, these insights, these quiet awakenings, were not meant to just be heard. They were meant to activate something within you. You've seen it now, how endings can become beginnings, how silence can carry wisdom, how every disruption has the potential to redirect you toward truth. And you've been reminded that love, true love, starts with presence, not permission. That money is not your enemy, but your teacher. That your past doesn't define you, unless you choose to carry it into a future that was never built to hold it. So the question now is not, will things change? The question is, are you willing to change with them? Let this be a turning point, not a dramatic one, not one that demands perfection, but one that invites consistency. Can you commit to listening to yourself a little more gently? Can you pause before reacting, and ask, is this aligned with who I'm becoming? Can you write one thing you're grateful for each morning, even if the rest of the day feels heavy? These are not small actions. These are radical acts of self-respect. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to keep choosing, one breath at a time, one honest step forward. The universe doesn't reward effort. It responds to energy. And every time you choose clarity over chaos, softness over self-criticism, faith over fear, you are shifting your entire reality. That's the magic you've always held, Scorpio. The power not to predict your future, but to create it. And if you're still wondering whether you're doing enough, whether you're far enough, healed enough, ready enough, let this be your answer: you are enough now. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're showing up anyway. Because you're choosing awareness over avoidance. Because your soul is still whispering, even when the world is loud. So as we close this reading, I want to leave you with a simple but powerful question. What would your life look like if you stopped resisting and started trusting? Really think about that. What would open up for you? Who might you become? And while you're reflecting, I'd love to hear from you. What part of today's message resonated most deeply? Was it the call to release, the reminder to realign, or perhaps the spark of hope that things can get better, starting now? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here. Your story might be the one that helps someone else find their light, too. If this reading has offered you something meaningful, a shift, a sense of calm, a glimmer of truth, please consider supporting Eternal Mindfulness by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone you love. Each action you take helps this space grow, not just for you, but for all the souls who find comfort in this kind of connection. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. For opening your mind, your heart, and your time to something greater than just information, something that moves you. I'm honored to walk this journey beside you. Until next time, Scorpio, stay soft, stay strong, and stay connected to the part of you that knows, even now, that you were made for more.